One, Vindication for Michael Jordan, 2311 and Front Row Motorsports both win races on opening weekend at Daytona to kick off 2026. Two, Jeremy Mayfield goes off on the modern day superspeedway style of racing, specifically Sunday's Daytona 500. Does he have a point? And three, on that note, Kyle Busch backed out of it on the final restart. Will he and Brad Keselowski end up being the Tony Stewart and Mark Martin of the 2020s, destined to retire without a great American race victory in the Daytona 500? Welcome, everybody, to the debut episode of Ben and Brandon's Motorsport Monday. I am your host, Ben Schneider, alongside my encore co-host for the last 4 years, and now starting this new chapter with me, Brandon Crossland. Brandon, it's great to see you again, my man. How are you?
It's good to see you too, Ben, and good to see everyone here. And it's stepping our toes out into some deeper waters. It feels like, but we've had 4 years of practice on this thing, so it's going to be business as usual. A lot of new ideas coming in, but most of all, we're going to be spending Mondays here with you with what we love to do, and that's talk about racing.
Yes, and as you can see, we still I did end up, you can probably tell, buying the middle tier for StreamYard, so we've got our logo up in the top left corner there, and we'll have access to some additional features here. We may change the background as we get a few episodes in here, but launching this with a pilot episode tonight here, so forgive any quirks that we're still trying to work out. What can you expect from us this year? Well, as most of you know, obviously, I'm no longer with the Grid Network on a full-time basis. I'm sure I will still pop in and out of there from time to time. Probably on Kobe Lambeth's show. Great to see Kobe as well here from Grid Tonight. You can catch that Wednesday night on the Grid Network YouTube channel. Motor Mondays continue. Got to get my occasional Ben rant in every now and then.
They'll still be here. No worries, Kobe.
No worries there. And I want to say thank you to John Bender. I saw him, was watching Matthew Bro and Tanner Smith in a row time slot with the premiere of Grid Rising. I guess he got sent over here and is just subscribed to my personal channel here. So, John, thank you so much for that. But yeah, what can you expect? Well, I want to start every show here kind of with three open segments that we used to do on the Encore show, three really big talking points that we want to do a deep dive into that we're passionate about. And obviously, being on my own channel now, not that I didn't necessarily have a ton of freedom over at the Grid Network. They were very good to me over there and gave me near total creative control over the Encore show by the end of it. But being on my own channel now, I do feel a little bit more freedom to venture out into different things from time to time here. So it's mostly going to be NASCAR stock car racing probably, but that'll include the Cup Series, which we didn't always cover on the old Encore show, and maybe a few other things will pop up from time to time as well. And then we're going to kind of shoot the breeze, so to speak, with whatever time we have left. We usually are going to want to keep these shows to about an hour in length, but again, we'll play things by ear as the weeks go on, depending on what kind of breaking news stories we have. It may be a little less, maybe a little more. Some smaller, quick, rapid-fire topics here, so to speak, as well. Maybe not rapid-fire, but not as deep of a dive as we will with our three major talking points here. But with that, let's kick off a show. Obviously, the biggest news of the race weekend here at Daytona, Tyler Reddick emerging from all the chaos and handing 2311 a victory in the Great American Race. And who would have thought just a couple of months ago that you would be seeing Michael Jordan and Jim France shaking hands right in front of the Harley J. Earl Trophy in Victory Lane at Daytona? But that was what we had here. Brandon, I just kind of want to get your initial thoughts and reaction to what we saw yesterday. Very thankful NASCAR moved the race up an hour so we could get that in before the rain came. Thankful to finally have, it feels like every year for the last several years, we've had the race moved to Monday or moved into prime time because we've had showers pop up and delay the race. Thankful that we got that all in and really got everything in on time pretty much all week. But what was your reaction to the 68th running of the Daytona 500?
Ben, glad to be on this new show and talking about a Daytona 500 that ended with some daylight still in the air. It was nice to have it done an hour early, all things considered, and also I think two hours and some change after the checkered flag flew. We had rain in the area, which is normal for Central Florida, so it worked out in our favor this year. But it was also good to have a 500-mile race wouldn't you know it, end in 500 miles. That's always a plus. We'll take that any year for the Daytona 500, as you know, following our show in the past. But um, it was a very different sort of Daytona 500 with the way the fuel mileage played in the final stage, and of course we know they're going to be three wide all throughout the field and just kind of biding their time and not completely 100% on the throttle. And a lot of people don't really, either they don't like it or they don't understand it. I think it's a little bit of both. It sure is entertaining to watch, but at the end of the day, when you know that they are basically biding their time and just kind of holding in place until the word go, until their manufacturers tell them it's time to dip down to pit lane. You can look at it that way, but there's a lot more strategy going on, I'm sure, than what meets our eyes. But I'm coming into 2026, Ben, with the chase for the cup back, and I'm fully optimistic about the slow improvement of the sport, and I think this was a very different Daytona 500 for some right reasons. And I say all of that before I get to the wrecking and carnage that was at the end, because I mean, of course, you're not going to have a night and day switch of the light from 25 to 26, but the problem still remains, Ben, that we haven't had that kind of Daytona 500 since 2017, when Kurt Busch got his one Daytona 500 ring, and that kind of Daytona 500 was more of the last era of 500-mile spectaculars that we've had. But this modern era, I guess you could say, it's much more survival, and who can just you get the fuel numbers right, but then who just has the luck to make it to the final lap, the final corner. And not even that we saw with this one. You got to make it to the stripe, and Chase Elliott just utter disbelief sitting up on the safer barrier. That's going to be, if it was 20 years ago, that would have been a Sam Bass painting next week. And that was just that's going to be an iconic image that they can use. Also, Bubba Wallace in the infield, you saw his frustration with the winning car, Tyler Reddick, in the background. By the way, let's talk about the winner, Tyler Reddick. My goodness, 23:11. That's our whole segment here. Vindication for Michael Jordan. And I mean, you look at the winter they had, and to come here and finally get a Daytona 500 for this organization, and also for Michael Jordan, is just strange seeing the man holding the Harley J. Earl. But also in a different way, it kind of felt like, this was destined to happen at some point. But with the second driver, with the 45 team, oddly enough, the one that Kurt Busch had some time in before his untimely departure from the top echelon of racing in stock cars. But yeah, overall, with the fuel mileage at the end, Ben, and then everyone coming back out and all scattered around the track, it was a whole lot of nothing there in that final stage, I guess, on a surface level. But then it was like, my goodness, where are we supposed to look? Like, it's go time. It's 15 laps to go. Why are we, we're all spread around, and I'm not sure who's really at the head of this thing. But when we got to those final few laps, I saw it on X. Someone said, yeah, Mike Joy still has his fastball, and boy, does he. I mean, even with the era that we're in, with how the Daytona 500 and drafting tracks operate, Mike Joy, he still has it. Just put on a whale of a call there for the final lap, and Clint Bowyer, Kevin Harvick, they stepped away. They let him do his thing. That's one of those things that I look at for it. But Tyler Reddick, finally a Daytona 500 champion, and it's just a different era we're in with how these races run. Unfortunately, it has some to do with the car, some to do with maybe how these drivers have been programmed to think when it comes down to the final laps. But I will take this over some of the things we've had over the last few years any day of the week, especially when you look at the Gen 7 era of racing, and two of the last, or between in the Gen 7 Daytona 500s, only 2 of them have not had a overtime finish. I believe that was the stat there. Just so happy to not have overtime and not have to deal with that. And also, hats off to NASCAR. This probably will get lost in the weeds, but hats off to NASCAR for not putting out the yellow. I know Jeb Burton was, where's the yellow?
I was gonna say, yeah.
Consistently inconsistent, yada yada yada. But I'm glad they didn't do that in this case, personally, because if they had, it would have looked like they were handing Chase Elliott the win, and also if we had to restack it would have been another carnage in turn 3 like you've seen every other year. But this was a welcome change to the Daytona 500 bottom line for me. I'm curious to know your thoughts.
Well, very thankful that we got to finish under green, and the leader at mile number 500 was the winner. We those have been far from guarantees in the last decade or so, like you were mentioning, Brandon. Even the 2017 race, I remember thinking, like, the first race of the stage racing era, at least for the Cup Series. I guess you had trucks and Xfinity at the time, and I apologize in advance. I'm sure I'm going to butcher that. I know it's the O'Reilly Auto Parts Series now. We're going to try to get used to that. It doesn't help that Xfinity still has a massive presence in the sport, and Xfinity Racing's Twitter account is still active, and they're still all over Bubba Wallace's car. I mean, we're still going to be seeing that name all year as race fans. But yeah, I mean, even that race, I thought in 17, I still remember hopping on a Facebook Live that NASCAR and NBC was doing, and Parker Kligerman was reading out comments and was saying, "Oh, this one's interesting. I like the stages, but don't throw the cautions." And I was thinking to myself, maybe they're onto something. Even in 2017 when we were first introducing this, like, because when you're racing to a predetermined caution point, I felt like that was leading to wreck fests even back then. Thankfully, that race calmed down a little bit. Maybe it helped that we still have the damaged vehicle policy. I think was only 5 minutes at the time, and a lot of cars had fallen out, so there weren't as many potential places where accidents could happen and cautions could come back out as a result. But that was an interesting finish. Obviously, fuel mileage playing a role in that as well, and Kurt Busch winning his one and only Daytona 500. But ever since then, it's felt like it's either been we have to go into multiple overtimes, or maybe we finish on lap 200, but we wreck on the last lap. I think 2021 was like that, if I remember correctly. That was the year with the big fireball and Chase Elliott, Michael McDowell, who was ahead of one another. That one, obviously. And of course, like, when the wreck is that serious, then I have no problem with them throwing the caution immediately. But this one, again, I can see where, you can look at it and say, well, there's consistent inconsistencies, but I think where the wrecks happened, how serious the hits were, I know there was a lot of talk. I think Jeff Gluck even pointed this out as well. Like, even he didn't realize just how big the first incident was in turn 1 on the last lap. But everybody obviously had enough time to slow down before they piled on into that. So I have no problem with NASCAR letting them race back to the end of the 500 miles for Daytona here. Obviously, big win for 2311. Massive for the sport, I think, to have a figure like Michael Jordan in victory lane at Daytona. And shout out MJ and Brad Daugherty, the former teammates at University of North Carolina, basketball legends, both of them, and both now in the last 3 years Daytona 500 winning car owners, because of course Brad Daugherty is part of JTG team with Ricky Stenhouse that won it in 2023, so they got something else in common now as well. And all 4 of those 2311 cars, really. I mean, I know some people are getting on Riley Herbst's case for attempting to block Brad Keselowski at the end coming to the line there. It would have been really interesting to see if Brad had enough momentum. I don't know that he would have gotten to the win, but I think certainly could have at least gotten second with the run that he had. But then again, Riley Herbst is trying to win the 500 as well, and coming off of a pretty dismal rookie season, if we're being honest. A lot of times we'd forget that 2311 was a 3-car team because Riley Herbst wasn't running anywhere near the front like Tyler and Bubba were. But and then, of course, Bubba Wallace leading a race high total of laps, and Corey Heim up there as well in their 4th entry, the 67 car. It's going to be out here for, I think, up to 12 races this year. His schedule is going to be. So all 4 of those cars in with a shot there at the end. And they ended up getting it with the 45 car, which, by the way, I didn't have the tweet saved, probably should have, but I think Clable was the one that pointed this out. when BJ McLeod spun in the opening laps, the first caution of the day, Tyler Reddick very nearly got hooked in the right rear as BJ was coming down the track. And it's funny to look back at those things in light of what ended up happening at the end of the race.
Yeah.
But this race is just as much about survival as it is bringing a fast car, and we'll get into that obviously a little bit later. Want to touch on the Xfinity and truck races though as well, and also ARCA, I guess. Brent, I don't know if anything stood out to you in that race. I was at a track meet all day, so I didn't get to catch really any of the ARCA or Xfinity races, but congratulations to Gio Ruggiero on winning the ARCA race, and Austin Hill once again. Stop me if you've heard this before. 4 times in the last 5 years that he's won this race.
No, look, they tried to stop him. They really did,
tried.
and they had a good shot at it too. But it's like once they got up to the point, they couldn't or they wouldn't do anything about it. And if they tried, if anything, they were just pushing him ahead. So I'm not, JRM is the one that's going to have to do something to get around him at Talladega, or even next weekend at Atlanta, because look out, he's coming.
Yeah.
He's going to be able to get a 2-week advantage on this brand new Chase for the Cup for the O'Reilly Auto Parts Series, which is really fun to say. I'm glad we've got all that together.
Yeah, yep. And I went to JSKI to look it up. You know what the entitlement sponsor is for next week's Xfinity race, right?
Probably Bennett.
It would be Bennett Transportation and Logistics.
They know too, yeah.
That is the
I was saying there's a reason it's the United Rentals 300. I mean,
to sponsors home race. Yeah, you've
back at Daytona, the Daytona was United Rentals 300.
Yeah, bet on Austin Hill for sure. I think definitely the favorite there. But again, adds to the irony. Obviously, it was 23-11 in front row. It wasn't RCR wasn't a part of that lawsuit, but the text that came out with Steve Phelps
You're right.
and everything, and the testimonies that were given. Obviously, Childress played a big part in what went down as part of that lawsuit, and his car wins on Saturday, and on Friday night, Chandler Smith, and boy, this was I think the finish of the weekend. If we're being honest here, I know some people would probably say the Cup finish was just as thrilling and exciting, but to see the trucks, I mean, I think John Hunter Nemechek beat them all to the start of the restart zone and then ended up finishing in 5th, if I recall correctly. Mm-hmm. I mean, just a bunch of trucks all under a blanket there at the end, and Chandler Smith's getting the job done. But Brandon, what were your thoughts on that? Because I know thrilling finish. Some people may be suggesting though that the call from the booth didn't live up to the moment in the same way you were saying.
That's what I was going to get to. I've got notes for this actually for the truck race. Yeah, John Hunter Nemechek. They're still tapping behind him. Can they keep it clean? Off turn 4, the 27th running of the Truck Series at Daytona. 4 wide across the checkered flag. Chandler Smith. I think that's all we need to say.
Yeah.
You need to throw Joey Logano yelling as well behind in the mix.
Yeah.
But, honestly, but yeah, that was one of the best. One of the better finishes for your money for the weekend. And Chandler Smith, I think he won stage 2 in the night, and also to come in for the win as well. And also the first race for Ram, Tony Stewart, Tony Stewart coming back, Travis Pastrana in the mix. Stewart got just kind of cleaned out early, and not much he can do about it, but. Hoping someone can, maybe Matt Collig can throw a few more dollars his way to get him back behind a Ram truck. That would be really nice. Hated that for going to O'Reilly, just pitter-pattering back to O'Reilly. Hated that for Natalie Decker also, just getting taken out by Sam Mayer on the backstretch later on. But she was running a fairly solid race, all things considered, and but yeah, just let's get to this comment here. Yeah,
definitely. I think ARCA Brakes was trending, unfortunately, after that one. But we'll leave that one there after some of the things that we've seen on social media over the last couple of days here. But let's get to Iceman's comments here. He's left a few for us. To have won the Daytona season opener in all 3 top NASCAR Series 2, 2015 Trucks, 2018 Xfinity, 2026 Cup is impressive. He had to win the 2018 Xfinity race twice. If you know, you know. Yeah. Again, I think that was 4 overtimes, if I remember correctly, and then barely beating his teammate Elliott Sadler to the line there. I think they say it was 4 10,000ths of a second. I don't know. The Indy Lights race with Logan Gomez and Alex Lloyd, that was, I think, certified Guinness World Record. I think that was 5 10,000ths of a second, and that one looked closer to me, at least, than that Daytona finish did. But I will trust their timing and scoring there. I think that one maybe just has it beat by the smallest of possible margins there. But a super close finish there nonetheless for Tyler Reddick that year. Had Herbst gone up a second earlier instead of being indecisive, Herbst could have won, and we would have had to deal with Herbst coasting off that 500 victory to stay in Cup. Well, I think he's going to be in Cup regardless. I think
there's too much backing.
Sponsorship and connections there. But would have been a cool story for him, especially a little bit of redemption. Like I said, a very tough rookie year last year. Unfortunately, just a little bit too late there, making that decision to come up, and it led to quite a bit of carnage there at the end. And then Reddick is also the first Toyota driver not named Denny Hamlin who won the Daytona 500. Also, Denny has won the 500 with Toyota as both a driver and an owner. Yeah, there you go. Denny Hamlin, certainly a part of that. Obviously, everybody talking about Michael Jordan, and for good reason, but Denny Hamlin, that's just as much his team, and to be the winning car owner, especially after what happened with his father losing him in the house fire of his offseason. Imagine that has to lift his spirits quite a bit if he couldn't win it himself in his number 11 car, to see one of his drivers take a checkered flag. And like I said, all 4 of his cars will be running competitively with a shot at it there at the end. Pretty good day for 2311, all things considered.
Yeah, really big for Denny to win as an owner too, and get to come back outside the fire suit and be able to celebrate that, especially after the off season that has been for NASCAR. It's good to see an all around celebration there.
Yeah, for sure. I just pulled up the Truck Series results here from NASCAR Statistics on J-Ski, and in last place they have the name Cletus Mitchell. That's kind of interesting. It would be either Cletus McFarland or Garrett Mitchell. Are we going with his character name or his government name there? They put the two together. So that reminds me of I think there was some merch around 2020, 2021 that would say Bubba Wallace Jr., which kind of put Darrell Wallace.
Yeah,
you can say Darrell Wallace Jr. You can say Bubba Wallace, but Darrell Wallace Sr. is not nicknamed Bubba as far as I'm concerned. So
no.
Bubba Wallace Jr. was kind of. I think Jeff Gordon was saying that in the booth as well, and it was kind of like got to pick one or the other there. You can't put the two together. But we'll see if they get that tweaked if Cletus decides to come back for another truck race. More on him a little bit later, of course, here as well, because obviously that's been a big talking point also, given how his race weekend went. But let's move on here and talk about what we've been talking about for years here on the Encore show, and we'll continue to talk about here. I'm sure as we get into maybe even Atlanta next week, and then Talladega, and come back to Daytona a little bit later. I want to say hi to Joe as well here before we pull the post up here from Jeremy Mayfield. Good to see you, Joe, and happy Motor Monday to you as well. Hope the conclusion of Grid Rising went well. I was able to tune in for most of it here before I had to jump on and get ready for our show. But wanted to highlight this post from Jeremy Mayfield, obviously former NASCAR Cup Series driver. And we'll take Joe's comment away here. There we go. This was a response from a fan underneath the Jeff Gluck poll. Was it a good race? And this user says no, and Jeremy Mayfield explains why. Another Daytona 500, another finish where the winner leads one lap because everyone else is out or in the wall. We just spent hours watching professional drivers save gas like they're driving a damn Prius, only for the finish to be decided like that. We're supposed to call this the Great American Race? This car is a tank. The drivers have zero respect, and the trophy is losing its meaning. Seeing the veterans get chewed up and spit out by the bump and run tactics of these younger drivers is getting hard to watch. Today proved that experience doesn't matter at Daytona anymore. Only who is willing to be the biggest wrecking ball. If you enjoyed that finish, you're a fan of crashes, not a fan of racing. So that is Jeremy Mayfield pulling no punches there with what he thought of this year's Daytona 500. Brandon, I'll go to you first here. Obviously, We've shared a similar sentiment in recent years, and I got to say, and this is why we do this show on Mondays and not immediately afterwards, because it usually takes me. I like, the tweet that I saw from Ryan McGee years ago. Let your mind digest what your eyes have seen. It usually takes me about 24 hours to do that. I came away yesterday thinking that was a pretty good Daytona 500 by modern standards, but the more I think about it, I appreciate that we finished under green in regulation, but I don't see any lies from that Facebook post that Jeremy Mayfield put out.
Well, I think he kind of sends some of it to some extremes. I would say, just for the shock value. I know he's got a podcast that was supposed to be out in January. I'm not sure if he's got it out. I haven't really seen any episode of it yet, but I was looking forward to that, the Jeremy Mayfield show. But yeah, I think he took some of this to extremes, saying, I didn't really enjoy the finish per se. I mean, regardless who was been into the wall, or regardless who won, I remember telling my wife at the end of it, as we saw just the aftermath on the front stretch, like, look at that, like that's not what this is supposed to be. The Daytona 500 shouldn't look like a seeing the safer barrier all tattered in just black streaks all over the place and a bunch of wrecked race cars. It shouldn't be the last one standing every single year. That's not. It's kind of a damper on, in my opinion, a damper on the legacy of the race itself and its history going back to 1959 at this facility. But so I think he stretches it a little bit just for the shock value. But you are true, Ben. There's not too many lies there, and that is the negative side of this equation. But I think there's a whole lot of positive, especially looking back at all the past Gen 7 Daytona 500s, where I don't get too, I'm not going to get too depresso after this one. But yeah, he's got points, and he's going to have some opposers on this, but I don't see any Daytona 500 rings for Jeremy Mayfield either.
Yeah, I get what you're saying. I do think he, he certainly went off. You can't deny that here. But I think when I think about it most, my biggest problem is with the fuel saving. And I don't have a problem with like fuel strategy or drivers trying to, go on economy runs. I mean, one of my favorite Indy 500 wins of all time is the 100th running of the race in 2016 when Alexander Rossi went off sequence and stretched his fuel, I think, to do, 36 laps on a single tank, which when everybody else was running 31, 32 was pretty impressive. And I really enjoyed that. But when it's the entire field running in one pack under a blanket and you've got, guys turning laps that are 2 to 3 seconds. I mean, the first time I noticed it, I think, was a couple of years ago when AJ Allmendinger was running by himself. I guess I don't know if he was off sequence or had been caught up in an incident or whatnot, but he was running by himself faster than the entire pack was running. And at first I'm thinking to myself, like, okay, is there something weird with the package that we're using? And it didn't occur to me until after the race and putting everything together that that's how massive the fuel saving was, that they were running that slow to the point where even together in a draft, they were running slower as a pack than one guy is out there running wide open. And
that's not good.
Again, I understand that it's a strategy sort of thing, but again, I don't think it's a great look for what's supposed to be your most prestigious, one of your fastest races of the year. And I mean, again, I don't know. I know I've seen people say get rid of the stage cautions. I think that'll fix everything. But I think drivers and crew chiefs have understood now that if you save fuel, then you can either run a longer stint or you don't have to put as much gas in your tank when you are on pit road, when you spend time refueling. Obviously, we have the single lug nut now. If you're changing tires, sometimes you can get all 4 tires changed before you can get your tank of fuel fully filled in one pit stop. So I think that would certainly help. I mean, me, I would get rid of stages entirely. The goal of racing is to be there at the end of the race, not at lap 65 arbitrarily or lap 130 or whenever we decide to place the stage breaks. But I think particularly on road courses and on super speedways, it has impacted the strategy the most, where it kind of puts these teams in a box where they really can't do anything to go off sequence, and then it kind of hurts the product there as a result. So that was a part of Jeremy's post, and we'll bring this up here one more time for people to read in case they're just joining us here. But driving like a damn Prius, I think that's more my biggest frustration, because I think that's more easily fixable. If drivers just have to agree that they're going to go all out and hold it wide open. Obviously, the next gen car is what it is, and the safety at this point, these young drivers. I mean, we just saw this weekend the 25th anniversary FS1 putting that documentary out. We've lost Dale Earnhardt. There are plenty of drivers in the field that were not alive the last time we had a fatality in one of NASCAR's top 3 divisions, and I think that does, we talked about this before in the past as well, give them a sense of invincibility to an extent where maybe they are more comfortable doing more reckless things out on the track and taking those risks, and that leads to the wreck fest that we've seen the last better part of a decade here. But again, I do think by next gen standards, it was a decent enough Daytona 500, certainly better than some of the low points that we've had in recent years. But I also do get where Jeremy Mayfield is coming there, and I think a lot of fans share that sentiment. I've been kind of on the fence. I haven't voted yet on the Gluck poll myself. Brandon, I don't know if you have, so I don't know what the results look like right now. I'm still, I don't know.
I just voted.
You just
10 hours left on the Gluck poll. 74% say yes, 26% say no. That's a sample size of just over 26,000.
Okay, that's probably about fair. What I would have guessed for that. I'm probably not going to vote in this one because I feel like I see strong enough points for either side there, but I'm not sure which side of the fence. I love parts of it. I hated parts of it. I can say that much. But I am satisfied enough with the finish given what the alternative could have been.
Yeah, I'm not sure the bump and run really is a new move, though. I don't. I mean, we saw plenty of it, but that also might be a part that's stretching it. I don't know.
Well, we saw a dump and run for the win.
Yeah,
you remember that, right?
Austin Dillon.
Yeah.
How could I forget? Yeah, that was. Yeah, Austin Dillon on Eric Almirola, of course. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and Iceman also saying, I'd argue that Mayfield not having a 500 ring actually strengthens his argument. Fields back then weren't in one pack when the Gen 4 was around, unlike the Gen 7. Yeah, I mean, obviously, times have changed as well, but I, again, feel like it's, and again, well, this is the perfect segue, actually, leading into point number 3. Because on that note, and they're kind of related here, we don't have the video loaded for you guys, but if you can certainly go check it out. It's been posted over on X/Twitter. This was Kyle Busch's onboard of the last 4 laps of the race. Here's a tweet from Andrew Schwartz. With this package, a super smart call by Kyle to just get out of the pack. He knew there was no way forward, no point in killing the car, hoping to days of thunder, quote unquote, a crash. So what did Kyle do? He backed out of it. His spotter or crew chief, one of them asked, "Are you out of fuel?" And he came back by saying, "No, why would I run into the wreck when I know I have no chance of passing that many cars to win the race?" So he backed out of it. I think backed down to the low 20s, maybe even 30th place there with just 3 laps to go. And of course, the wrecks inevitably happened. And let me just make sure I get this right here. I don't remember off the top of my head exactly where Kyle ended up in the race results, but I know it was a lot high. It was 15th, and you could hear his spotter saying, let's make sure we back it down here because this is going to be a lot of spots that we gain, especially because the race stayed green there up until the end. I think the caution had come out by the time Kyle was coming off of turn 4 because obviously they wrecked at the start-finish line. So the finish happened under green. Some of the cars that were on the back end of the lead lap, they finished under caution and was out at that point, and Kyle was among them. But finishing 15th and keeping the car in one piece, he probably ended up better off than he would have been had he gotten turned from the pack or run into somebody that gotten turned in front of him in the middle of the pack. So just to kind of segue there, Brandon, what does a champion like Kyle Busch, who's never won the Daytona 500, making that decision say about the current state of this race? And then on that note, 22 years of trying, 21 races because he missed 2015. But yeah, Brad Keselowski up there too at the end, get wrecked. He's had that happen before. Are either of those guys ever going to win the Great American Race?
They're going to have to luck their way into it, because that's just about the only way you can win it is having the track position with a lap to go and someone giving you the right kind of push and not end up dumping you in the process or not getting involved in somebody else's mess. But yeah, Kyle Busch having to back out of it, not giving up, but just knowing he's been here enough, son. He knows what's coming. So, and you can call that a good points day, which, might be the return of that phrase. But I never heard that. Never heard anybody say that. I'm just poking the bear is all.
It's also a little early to start thinking about that. We still got 25 races to make up for it.
But anyway, it does say to the negative of how the race is run now. If that's the veteran's approach, you want to talk about the veteran. The veteran feels like he can't make it through what's ahead of him. And also, Brad Keselowski mentioned Riley Herbst's push coming out of 4 as just stupid. He had never. He was just hot and bothered about that. Of course, still with his cane from the femur incident in December. I hope that continues to heal for him. But and just glad he was able to be in the car for the weekend, most of all. But yeah, they could very well be like Mark Martin and Tony Stewart in this decade, because Kyle Busch has had now 21 chances, and a lot of them pretty solid, just didn't pan out. And you can say the same for Brad Keselowski, but one of these days it could happen. I heard Brad Gilly say this evening, or it was either him or Todd Gordon on the late shift, that Brad Keselowski, he's not an old man, but he's not a spring chicken anymore either. And you can say about the same for Kyle Busch.
Yeah, both in their early 40s now. Kind of hard to believe, but they've been around quite a while, and still, Brad especially. If you had to ask me who's the best super speedway racer in the Cup Series, there was a time where I think a lot of people would have told you Brad. Probably in the mid 2010s. He was racking up Talladega wins like they were coming out of style, and he's won the summer race here. Kyle has also won the summer race here, and had a couple of great shots to win it with Gibbs his first couple of years there, 08, 09. Obviously, in 09 got taken out in the big one, and 07 spun out on the last lap. He was right up there in the mix with Harvick and Martin and Kenseth and all those guys. And then I like to say he won the Daytona 500 in 2023. Ricky Stenhouse won the Daytona 530, but
530,
yeah,
the longest ever.
Yeah, that was another one there that could have been that got away from him, but. Yeah, again, like I said, it's just I go back to that question from Elton Sawyer, like what exactly are we trying to fix when you've got 60 some odd lead changes at Talladega or anything, and that's just the eye test will tell you just looking at this next gen super speedway package, and then obviously the fuel mileage situation and everything with drivers only running half throttle. Lead changes can be deceiving, especially when you're running 2x2 like this and somebody noses ahead of somebody else, and you can point to that and say, oh look, there was a lead change here, but how much is actually changing if that's what the racing looks like? It doesn't look like anything like what we saw in the Gen 4 era, and I'm not saying that that's what we need to be shooting for or go back to or anything, but I think we can look at what we have now and say certainly some room for improvement there. And probably not the best of looks that, a champion who's done everything there is to do in this sport except win this race, really, when you think about it.
He can't win your marquee race still.
Yeah.
Earnhardt Sr. eventually got it with enough trial and error.
And the fact that even with all of that, he still backs out of it at the end and says, I guess we'll try again next year, but there's no point in tearing my car up, so I'm just going to back out of it and wait for the wreck to happen. probably not great, right? So we can leave that one there, and we'll see if it changes any when we come back next year or come back in the summertime. But the next gen still certainly now in year 5 here, we still have a bit of a problem, I think, with how it races on these super speedways in particular. But we'll wait and see if that changes throughout the rest of this era, or if we'll just have to wait for whatever they call the Gen 8 car in a handful of years, whenever that comes along, to see if it gets any better. But certainly, I hope that these two guys. I mean, I don't love playing fantasy sports or making picks or anything, because I feel like I always jinx whoever the crowd favorite is, whoever you want to see win. But no, I don't really care if it's Kyle or Brad. I think both of those guys are deserving champions of the sport who, like I said, have accomplished pretty much everything else. This is just the one thing missing from their resume. I guess Kyle has to go out and win his truck championship, right? He's talked about that in the past. We've talked about that in this show. Yeah. Maybe, who knows what the future holds for him. And Brad, I guess, too. Brad could be the first champion in all 3 series, right? He used to have a truck team. He's back in ownership. Why not maybe go after that in his final years here? But aside from that, of course, the only glaring hole in their resume is winning a Daytona 500. We'll just have to wait and see how many more chances each of them gets.
Yeah,
but
hopefully they can get some more.
Yeah, and I know Kyle was on First Things First on FS1 this week. They were live from Daytona, and I think Nick Wright was asking him about your Hall of Fame chances. Should you not win this race, or how big of a deal would it be if you retire without winning this race? And Tony Stewart's still in the Hall of Fame. Mark Martin is still in the Hall of Fame. Carl Edwards just went in the Hall of Fame a couple of years ago. He came close in 2011, couldn't get the job done. One of the only things missing from his resume too. It doesn't make or break the careers that they have had.
It's not a Hall of Fame disqualifier, but it's really nice to have that ring on your finger. Yeah,
for both of them. So, all right. Well, on that note, let's hit a few more topics here. We've got about 17 minutes, I guess, before we come up on the top of the hour here. It's NASCAR week. Hey, hopefully any game show fans on my channel here, we're streaming this show on my channel this year. It was NASCAR week on Wheel of Fortune, and it's tough for me to catch Wheel and Jeopardy these days because I'm so busy with work and prepping for stuff like this and helping out my college's cross country and track teams, and I don't get to watch nearly as much of those shows as I used to, but I was trying to pay a little bit of attention this week. And Kyle Busch doing this as well here. He was one of the 3 drivers, as well as Christopher Bell and Joey Logano, that were a part of Friday's show and part of the promotional material. Maggie Sajak, Pat's daughter, doing a great job running Wheel of Fortune socials these days, and gives me something else to talk about if I ever do a part 3 of the Motorsport Game Show crossover series here. But Brandon, I think you're a little bit of a game show fan, right? Did you get to see any Wheel of Fortune last week?
I did not. I don't see Wheel of Fortune too consistently these days, but no, you will hear that one of the first things I ever wanted to do was be a game show host. So I guess that's what I've always carried with me, and I got to do some of that on college TV. We made some game shows of our own, and that was really fun. But yeah, Wheel of Fortune, it's such a staple, and along with Jeopardy. But love the theme nights. So and it's good to have Maggie still be a part of the team, though, with Pat being gone. And I think Ryan Seacrest he's definitely fulfilling that role fairly nicely. If you kind of turn your brain off for a little bit from the episodes I have seen, if you turn your brain off, it kind of feels like Pat's still there a little bit. But then you take a little closer look, and then, oh yeah, it's Ryan Seacrest.
Yeah, the core of the show is still the same, and of course Vanna's still there. I don't know how much longer she has left. I'm sure Maggie will be the one to take over whenever Vanna White decides to call it a career.
Obvious choice. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. But yeah, that show's still going strong, obviously, as is Jeopardy. I love what Ken Jennings is doing right there with that show.
I love me some Jeopardy. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, for sure. This also went viral last week for me. I think I mentioned this a little bit in the impromptu stream that I did here, but this has bothered me for forever, really, as long as I've been a race fan who's adhered to the rules and regulations and known what the rules and regulations are, and not just a kid who, fell in love with the fast race cars that I saw from Pixar in 2006. Now that I actually know how criticism works and know how this sport works, it has always bothered me that Lightning McQueen got back on the lead lap. Well, but before we talk about this, Jordy Car Series here, this Twitter user had a tweet that went even more viral than mine did. But talking about how the Piston Cup officials were so desperate for a storyline that they threw a yellow for the puncture that Chick Hicks gave to Lightning McQueen that left no debris on the track in a 3-car race, and they threw the yellow, which I guess saved Lightning McQueen because he would have been out of it had they not thrown a yellow for that, obviously, with how much time he would have lost. But he should have been out of it anyway, because I saw this tweet and I quoted it and said, not to mention the fact that McQueen clearly did not even come close to beating the pace car out of the pits and should have been trapped a lap down. He would have had to be ahead of the pace car by that pit exit line. You can see he is well past that pit exit line and still hasn't passed the pace car, and yet he just zooms on by. If you keep watching the video or keep watching the movie, the pace car's got an angry face when he sees Lightning pass him and overtake him, and yet they let it go. They let it slide. I mean, no argument, no question. He's back on the lead lap, despite the fact that he very much did not beat the pace car out of the pits. And I saw there was a reply to my tweet saying, "Oh, you're assuming that the Piston Cup has the exact same rules as the NASCAR Cup Series." And if you listen to the movie, what does Daryl Cartrip say in the booth? It was a great stop, but he's still got to beat that pace car out.
Yeah, they've got the same rules. Pretty similar. I mean, when we had to Speedway at the South, I mean, they got those dual pit roads.
We did, yeah. Well, that's basically Bristol, I guess, right? And
no. We're in the Cars universe here. Speedway at the South.
Yeah, yeah. Well, it was modeled after. We know what track.
Right.
Just like this was modeled after California Speedway, I think. The final race here in Los Angeles.
Yeah, and also like a big version of the LA Memorial Coliseum as well.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah. It's kind of like they put the two of those together there. But again, it's so obvious, and I can't believe that they let that slide here. So
well, John Lasseter really needed a story beat, and so this is how he got it. He got McQueen blew a tire, and well, that was in the first first race. But Chick Hicks intentionally tried to take the lead role, the lead protagonist out of the movie, and he did what in his cup? The end. He got to fly on one of them fancy helicopters, and the rest is history. And then some spy movie kind of got in the way, and then Jackson Storm.
I don't know about that, but
and then North Wilkesboro made an appearance.
Yes, I do have to admit I did plug my Milwaukee video under that when I recognized how viral that tweet was going, because I was like, hey, if you want to see a time where Cars 3 happened in real life and somebody started the race but still got credit for the win because somebody else finished it, well, that's the finale for Cars 3 for you. But
if you spend any amount of time with Ben Schneider, you're going to hear about New Hampshire and Eric Almirola and
Milwaukee.
Milwaukee, excuse me, Eric Almirola and Denny Hamlin.
Yes, you certainly are. Good to see you, Luis, in the chat here.
That and the John Deere race at Michigan, the truck race.
Yes.
Yeah. Hey, what's going on, man?
Yeah, I always love that detail of the angry pace car. Yeah, that's. Yeah. But again, Strip Weathers got robbed, man. Like you should have disqualified Chick for reckless driving, and you should have put Lightning a lap down because he didn't beat the pace car out. Like, Strip Weathers wins that race by default. He should be an 8-time Piston Cup champion. I don't know what else to tell you.
Yeah. Oh, boogity.
Yeah, unfortunate. All right. Moving on to a more serious topic here quickly. I did a standalone video on this week on my channel, but no Matt Crafton in a truck race for the first time since October of 2000. If you followed this, not this show, the Encore show, the show followed the two of us, I should say, the old show that we were doing. We talked about this a little bit last year, Matt Crafton's consecutive start streak. Coming to an end here. He is going to run part-time this year. He says he's in a video with Stapleton Going to do 5 to 10 races this season, but Daytona was not one of them, and that ends his streak at 592 races. Brandon, I look at Ben Rhodes, and it's a very similar trajectory for me at this point in his career. He's been with the ThorSport team, primarily in that same 99 truck. He's won a couple championships. Don't really know if he's going to get an opportunity to move up at this point in his career. He's really starting to feel like a truck lifer to me. Is there any chance in your mind that he could be around for 14, 15 more years and break what seems to be an unthinkably long record that Matt Crafton has set here with his consecutive start streak in the Truck Series?
Not only Ben Rhodes, I think now Ty Majeski, who's taking the new helm of the '88, has just a good chance of sticking around for a really, really long tenure. Still a young guy, relatively speaking. And then Louisville, Kentucky's Ben Rhodes, which, as a matter of fact, my brother and I went to Louisville for the Farm Machinery Expo 60th annual extravaganza thing there. And wouldn't you know it, they did have a show truck there with the TYM booth. And so picked up a Ben Rhodes hero card. Had a few of these left. So thank you, Ben Rhodes and ThorSport. I was kind of bummed though that was the only show car in the whole expo center. Nothing for Kubota with Ross Chastain or Trackhouse or anything, but it was nice to see a familiar face. But yeah, he's got a really good chance of surpassing that streak. I don't see him going anywhere, and 2 championships also really helps you solidify your spot at a team, for sure.
I think he's gonna be around a while. Whether he's around, the 14 or 15 years that he would need to break the record is going to be another question. I don't even know if he's going to want to continue doing it that long. And then you've also got to assume that he, doesn't get hurt. As much as we've been, praising the safety innovations in these cars and trucks over the years. I mean, it is no guarantee. It is still a dangerous sport here, and I think that's what makes the Ironmans. I mean, especially Jeff Gordon, because Jeff was still racing in an era in the 90s where injuries and unfortunately fatalities were more commonplace, and even into the early 2000s, obviously. Looking at, Ty Majeski's 31. He's on a streak of, I guess, I'm just going to do the math quickly here in my head. It's the last 4 seasons, so 3 seasons of 23 races each. That's 69 plus 25 would be 94. So 95 races, if my math is correct there.
He's got a ways to go, of course.
He's got a long ways. He would have to do this into his early 50s here, and I don't know if Majeski's going to be around quite that long, or if he would get another Xfinity opportunity. Or see, there you go. Put a start that count there. Another O'Reilly, O'Reilly opportunity. Yeah, it's going to be a while. Yeah, before we get that down packed. But
not me. Yeah, I'm good.
Yeah. We'll see. It'll happen soon enough.
You won't catch me saying that.
Yeah. Well, and just looking at this as well, I guess Majeski's never done a cup race. Ben Rhodes has done one of those at least, and Crafton obviously did a couple of those, filled in ironically enough for Kyle Busch when he got hurt, and a couple of others along the way. So yeah, it'll be interesting, but that Ironman streak I think is going to be around for a long while before I think Ben Rhodes is the only one in the immediate future. And I know I talked about Tyler Ankrum and Tanner Gray a little bit. They're the next closest with their streaks, but again, those guys I think are young. Ankrum especially, I think, coming off of the season that he's had, would not put an Xfinity and O'Reilly opportunity past. I did not do that on purpose. I promise you. I'm trying here. Would not put an O'Reilly opportunity past him.
He's trying to be funny now is what's going on.
Yeah. No, that was it's like riding a bike. It comes back to you. We're excited to do this new show. It's been that way for 11 years.
The Nope Opera, the O'Reilly Auto Parts series.
O'Reilly.
Yeah. We are in full Nope Opera mode. Yeah.
Yep. And so Tanner Gray being the other one. I feel a little more like maybe Tanner Gray's starting to get the truck lifer feeling as well. Now that I think about it, he's still looking. I know he got the ARCA win last year. Still looking for that truck victory, but he's been with the same team for a while now. So we'll see what the future holds for either of them. But Worth, I thought, taking one last look back at Crafton's streak as it came to an end officially on Friday. We knew it was coming, but now it is officially been reset. So Sticking with Truck Series. Well, before we do that, I will go to the chat here because we've got a couple of comments that have come back in. Iceman saying Ben also brought up the irony of Almirola winning JGR and Owners Championship last year and Denny losing the Cup Championship. Yeah, there you go. Those two still linked in that way after what happened at Phoenix in 2025. And Luis, I think going back to the Cars universe here, they should have just based the title on wins, runner-ups, and so on, unless somehow they equaled and everything, but that would be too technical. That said, hey, Ben and Brandon, just a normal Monday. Yes, I'm very curious. I got to take a better look at the Piston Cup wiki here to see what the breakdown is, because they've got champions listed all the way back. I don't know which years exactly Strip Weathers won his 7 championships, or I would have to go back and rewatch Cars. I don't know if it was explicitly ever stated that Strip Weathers has 7 Piston Cups. Obviously, he's based off of the king, Richard Petty, who had 7 Winston Cup championships, or the Cup equivalent. I forget how many he won before and after the Grand National Winston Cup era changed over. But
well, Lewis, I want to say congratulations on your Super Bowl title, by the way. Hope you enjoyed that all through the offseason. You well deserved, and go Mariners. Hope they can do the same for you.
Yeah, if they could at least get to the World Series, because they're the only team that hasn't at least experienced that. That said, I'm sure a World Series parade would be just as special, if not even more special, for the city of Seattle. So, yeah, definitely, Luis. After the way, I know it wasn't fun watching the Thunder win the NBA Finals, but it sounds like Supersonics may be coming back. We're gaining some momentum there, NBA expansion. So, we'll keep our eye on that.
Really nice, right there. Yeah.
Yeah. So
they've already got the place for it.
Yes.
And they got Climate Pledge Arena. Let's go.
They do. Yeah. Where the
chop.
Storm and Kraken end up playing right now. I'm sure they could find a way to fit an NBA team in there as well. All right. Well, one more note on the trucks here, and then Brandon, I know you have an F1 topic you want to hit quickly here as we're coming up on an hour already. Yeah. But let's talk about Cletus a little bit, obviously, because he brings in a lot of viewership, a lot of fans, and a lot of attention, notoriety to a series that could certainly use some of that. I want to preface this by saying, Cletus he seems like a really cool, chill, down-to-earth guy that you would love to hang out with. And I don't drink beer, but you know what I mean. Like, sit down and have a drink and talk cars and talk racing and talk about life or whatever. Any criticism that I have or am about to have of him or Garrett, I should say, none of it personal, right? We're simply talking about somebody with his level of racing experience, or perhaps better lack thereof, racing in a national touring event here. And I know we talked about this last year because there was a controversy with him running the ARCA race at Charlotte and missing a shift on a restart. And again, I'm curious. I'm going to have to go back and catch the end of Matthew and Tanner and see what they were saying about this. But I have very little problem with him running ARCA. I think ARCA is a place where, you see journeyman drivers or gentleman drivers, if you will, and a large gap from the top teams. I mean, you have teams like Joe Gibbs Racing and Nitro Motorsports and Pinnacle, running in that series, and then you have Brad Smith out there with his team and Wayne Peterson and guys that are just out there because they love to do it, but they don't have anywhere near the budget of the top teams, right? And we've seen sometimes that creates difficult situations, with lap cars and the closing rates there. It's a different series, it's a different culture, but it's a proving ground. It's a place where drivers can learn the ropes. No problem with Cletus being an ARCA. I don't know that he should have been approved to run the Truck Series season opener at Daytona based off of a Rockingham test. And I have to say, I saw a tweet, not going to say who it was from. I'll just say it was from a guy that was telling you Haley Deegan was going to win Cup races by now, so we all know how that one turned out. Although she is coming back to ARCA West, so we'll see how she does with McAnally this year. But was talking about Adam Andretti, who's going to run a few races for Tricon in the 5 truck starting this weekend at Atlanta. Has done a handful of stock car races in the past, but not recently. He's more recently been in Trans Am, if I remember correctly, and was saying this is the worst approval of the year. And I'm sorry, I just can't agree with that when I look at something like this and I say to myself, this was not even the most questionable approval in my mind in this particular series within the last week. Because and you saw how it played out. I think it was only lap 6 where Cletus got loose off of turn 4 and ended up hitting the inside wall hard and was lucky not to take out anybody else in that incident. So I will give him credit for that. He at least was able to get it under control to the point where it was just him spinning off to the inside and not taking anybody else out as a part of that. But you have to wonder in hindsight, was he ready for a jump like this? Because that jump from ARCA to trucks, I mean, we've seen it before with other drivers who have some success in ARCA and then get to the truck series and immediately start running in the low teens or in the 20s. It's hard to make that transition and find that success. And it's not like Cletus ran full time last year. We were talking, I think even some people questioning whether Frankie Muniz, is kind of a similar situation. Obviously brings a lot of name recognition and name value and a large fan base. Is he ready for the jump of the truck series? But at least Frankie ran full time in ARCA before he made that step up.
True.
Cletus doesn't even have that much ARCA. I think he did 4 races last year, if I remember correctly. So certainly have to wonder in hindsight, if he was ready for a jump like this. But Brandon, I don't know if you have any thoughts on that here.
Well, for a safety aspect, it's probably not good for him to be in a truck just yet. But for a marketing aspect, I can't help but look at it from the marketing aspect and just what a juggernaut Garrett Mitchell, Cletus McFarland is for our sport. And I mean, putting him on the NASCAR advertising for the whole heck yeah brother NASCAR racing marquee that they're putting up for the 2026 season, he pairs so well with that. And I think that's the idea behind putting him in some higher caliber events to start off the season. But I certainly didn't expect him to fall off the pace or to fall out of the pack in turn 4 so quickly on Friday night. I think had he gone a little further in the race, maybe this would have been a different discussion. I would like to think, but yeah, it definitely could be a safety issue, and it might be it's kind of how we looked at Frankie Muniz, where it's good that he had the year in ARCA, and Frankie Muniz has sort of kind of validated his way into the Craftsman Truck Series. Maybe not so much for Garrett Mitchell, but I think the marketability of Cletus McFarland and it just his interviews when he gets out of the truck it's so lucrative as a motorsport organization that you got to have him somewhere.
Yeah, and again, I not rooting against him at all. I would love to see him prove doubters wrong and do well. But unfortunately, I think based on what happened in the truck series, would like to see him at least do a full year if he's that serious. And it sounds like he is that serious. I know he was very close with Greg Biffle, and again, still sending our thoughts and prayers out to the Biffle family and everybody who knew Greg, especially. Really tragic off season for our sport, but I imagine Cletus, especially after that, wanting to race on and honor Greg's legacy, one of his closest friends. If he is that serious, then show me what you got in a full season of ARCA. Go out there and
fair. Yeah.
I don't know if he would be a championship contender. Probably depend on how many full-time entries we have in ARCA, because that can always fluctuate from year to year. But that would gain him the experience, and I think would gain him the credibility if he can finish some of these races and run well and run fast. And then we can come back in 2027 or 2028 and say, are you ready for trucks? Are you ready for O'Reilly? Got it right that time. There you go, Brandon.
Good job.
Because I think he's talked about running the Daytona 500 one day. But I think he is a long, long way away. I'm not saying he can never get there, but he's a long way from a point where those conversations, I think, would be would have some merit to them.
Maybe 2030.
2030, yeah. I mean,
yeah.
If he, and that's if he runs full time and is committed to the craft here. So yeah, we'll. I see, Matthew. Thank you for your comments. We'll get into that. We'll circle back here in just a moment. But Iceman brings up a good point here as well. Just last year, they didn't approve Mike Wallace for the Daytona 500 for Garage 66 because he hadn't raced Cup in a decade. Yeah, and I mean
that was a big controversial thing too.
It was
at the start of the season.
Yeah, and again, I go back and forth on that. Obviously, I know Mike is in his mid 60s now, and I mean, my goodness, he would have been. I think Jimmy was the oldest driver in the field this year. He's only 50, so he would have easily been the oldest driver in the field had he been approved to run that last year. But Mike was always great in the draft and on super speedways. I remember he won a truck race with Kevin Harvick's truck in 2011 at Talladega, if I recall correctly. So I think the fact that Mike Wallace, and again, I know it had been a while. He's obviously out of his prime at this point, hasn't been in the car in a long time, but the fact that he would have had to go through a reapproval process, I think, shows you maybe how serious NASCAR wanted to be taking this. But then, I know part of it. What were there 40,000 people, I think, watching the YouTube live stream of his in-car camera, Cletus McFarland from a truck race. It's unfortunate that they only got 6 laps of it before you saw it on the record. But
promotional juggernaut.
Yeah, no doubt.
Gotta have him.
And they had smokes too. They had Tony Stewart's on board. That didn't last. The YouTube analytics, I don't think were as high for NASCAR as they would have wanted on Friday night.
That's a bummer too, because
both those streams ended early. Yeah,
that would have been great for NASCAR to have.
Yeah, thank you, Luis. It was 40K. Tony peaked at around 20K. Yeah, so there you go.
Still,
that alone. How much ad revenue is that for NASCAR for their YouTube channel? I mean, you got to think. Yeah, that's huge. Getting people interested in that. Matthew, good to see you, my man, and great job. I know you guys are going to kill it over there in our old time slot. Stopping by for Grid Rising. Super excited for Motorsport Monday. Thank you guys for all you've done, and glad to see you guys continue. Garrett Mitchell should try some local late model races or Cars Tour to bring attention to that series, or race Crown Vics at a big event that has the Cars Tour there. Yeah, I mean, Cars Tour again, I think is another great option there.
Bring Cars Tour to the Freedom Factory.
That would be fun, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, but again, I don't. Actually, I've got a tab open here on the third turn. And actually, I guess we should. Okay, so I'm working on putting the ARCA article together for Brock and LASCAR. We should also mention Cletus was in the ARCA race, and he did finish that one in 11th place on the lead lap. So credit where it's due. It wasn't a total loss that weekend, but just looking at his racing reference page here, this is the extent of it. 1 Truck Series start, obviously, 5 ARCA starts, 1 ARCA Menard Series East start. I believe that was the combo race at Bristol last year. So that wasn't a separate race. That was one of the ARCA starts that he made. Wheelman Sportsman Series results. It says 2023 0 out of 7. I don't know if that means he didn't qualify for a race he entered, or if he maybe didn't make the feature race, or what that deal is. Stadium Super Trucks results. 6 out of 8 starts in the 2022 season. Bristol Dirt Nationals Hobby Stock Division 2 starts. Winter warm-up, other asphalt events, 2 starts. That is his entire racing reference page. So no Cars Tour, no other late model series. It's a pretty bare bones racing resume. And again, obviously Cletus is massive on YouTube. He's a car guy. It's not like you're putting me out there, right? Like I love the sport, but I am in no way qualified. I have no racing experience of any kind. He has minimal experience. He knows more about cars than I'm sure the average person does. But again, just because he's got a large following, I don't think should mean that he gets to get a pass on the approval process that somebody else might not get.
It's fair, but I'm telling you, the marketability is got to be a big factor of why he is there. I'm not saying it's right, but
no doubt, yeah. And Iceman also adding he's on the same that Muniz drove for, the same team. I think he means there, same team that Muniz drove for in ARCA during his full year in 2023, where I think he was top 5 that year in a season where the only full-time driver in good equipment was Jesse Love. Yeah, I remember we talked on the Encore show, because I think Jesse Love had crashed out of either Talladega or Daytona. It was one of the first. I think Frankie was leading the points after 2 or 3 races, and we said, is Frankie Muniz a legitimate ARCA championship contender? And then at that point, it became clear Jesse Love was going to win the title. And I think Frankie was second for a while, and then he fell to third, and I think he ended up 4th in the standings. But again, that's because of how ARCA works. Only one, I think he had 1 top 5, if I recall correctly, at Michigan. So you can finish top 5 in points without even having more than just a couple of top 5s in race results on the season, because you've got a lot of part-time drivers in there in the top teams that are coming in and running up front, but they're not competing for a championship. So, yeah, I mean, again, I think a similar, and obviously Frankie's, not driving the greatest of equipment, in his truck starts either here, but has at least, I think, proven that he's competent enough. And he even has more extensive racing background professionally than Cletus does. Because I think a lot of people forget that he was kind of on an IndyCar path in the late 2000s, and then had some health issues that caused him to take a step back before he's come back now in the 2020s in stock cars. So
I think it was in the Atlantic series or
yeah.
Atlantic something for Frankie.
Yeah, for sure. All right. Well, Brandon, we've come up here on already an hour and 11 minutes here, so I don't know if you've got any time constraints here for the evening, but Max Verstappen made some comments this week. I think you want to chime in on what he said about what we have to look forward to of the new 2026 regulations for Formula One.
Yeah, the one really making the headlines, Ben, is Max Verstappen. Of course, 11 teams on the grid now, with Cadillac joining the American front. Haas will tell you that they're the American team, but I think Cadillac is the one you have to go with here in the States. But with 11 on the grid now, new rules and regulations for 2026. This car is shorter again, and all sorts of new things going on. Max Verstappen puts up the headline. He says, quote, "This isn't Formula One, it's Formula E on steroids. I don't enjoy driving these cars." Well, trying to build up the new rules and regs, that's not really good for your world champion, is it, Ben, for him to be so negative on the car, especially before we haven't even got to Albert Park for round one. In Australia. So I'm waiting to see this thing in racing conditions. I've been enjoying the whole Apple TV F1 partnership here in America, besides the part where they locked my account yesterday. Got that fixed with F1 tech support, so shout
glad
out to
you're able
Glenn.
to get that resolved. Yeah,
thank you, Glenn. And if you have a problem with it, I'll be able to help you out on this show. Just let us know in the comments, and I'll help you. I'll be able to help you out. It was a thing they had to do on their end, so... But apparently it's been a thing that's been going around. So if your account does that, let us know, and we'll just get with F1 tech support. But anyway, yeah, it's not a good look for. And I think also Lewis Hamilton had some comments that weren't so nice about it. But at least they're being honest about it. But yeah. Also, I'd rather wait to see it in race conditions before I draw a verdict.
Yeah, well, and I go back and forth on that because obviously. Max Verstappen, there's only two guys that have won more races than he has, and one of them is another driver, Lewis Hamilton, that's made some similar comments. And I know people aren't a fan of Max's attitude at times. Hello, Matt White, if you're watching this, our old Grid Network colleague here. So I get why the attitude is kind of off-putting, and I'm with you, Brandon. I think that I would like to wait and see, at least a couple of races in before I make a judgment too harshly either way here. But I think also important to remember that for the first time in quite a long time, it's, Max is obviously still a world champion. He's not the current world champion. That would be Lando Norris. And Lando fired right back at him and said, listen, if Max has teased this in the past here, about going to race sports cars or doing something else, not wanting to be here forever, he's free to retire if he wants to. And, that kind of reminds me of the whole "don't like it, don't watch it" argument when we complain about what we see here of NASCAR. So, I don't think the concerns that a four-time world champion has should be summarily dismissed as being unimportant. And if you don't like it, you can just go. I did see Formula E put out an open offer for Max to go test one of their cars whenever he wants to. I thought that was kind of amusing, but. Yeah, I mean, we'll see. I have to say, comments from drivers aside, I am very excited. I think there's a lot that this season has to offer. It's a shame it's going to be behind the Apple paywall, but we'll see. This is going to be the true test, I think, for how strong the new American fan base is here for Formula One. How many of them bought the Apple subscription, the F1 TV subscription, to watch the races this year? But got to think Cadillac being there is going to help boost some interest. And I have to say again, I know I touched on this a little bit last week, but well done, Cadillac. Brandon, you brought up the Super Bowl. They launched their livery in the Super Bowl commercial and gave me chills, honestly, watching. I know some people said they weren't a fan of the asymmetric livery, but I think it looks pretty cool. I would have liked to have seen some gold or some yellow in there. I think there was
some Cadillac color, especially from the hypercars, But
yeah, so we'll see if they incorporate that into next year's design or whatever. But loved that they brought out the JFK speech about choosing to go to the moon and do the other things, not because they are easy, but because they are hard. This is not going to be easy. And I think Cadillac knows that. This is going to take some time. They're not going to come in here and suddenly start competing with McLaren and Red Bull for a championship. It's going to be a multi-year plan. And obviously they're using Ferrari engines now. They're going to bring their own power unit in here. Yeah. As is the Haas, by the way.
Right. Yeah.
But I think to your point, Brandon, because of the fact that Haas has had some American development drivers and test drivers. Santino Ferrucci was with them for a little while. But because they haven't had that, they don't really have, Gene Haas isn't as visible as, say, Gunther Steiner was over the years. But, and now maybe with Toyota coming in, even though Toyotas roll off the assembly line in Kentucky and Chevy and Ford import a lot of their parts. We make that joke all the time. What's the true American brand here? But Toyota being a part of the Haas team now with that partnership, I think Cadillac is going to be seen as the true American Formula One team going forward here. And again, we'll just have to wait and see how much interest that brings to the sport, particularly here in the States. But love Cadillac's mindset and what they showed with that livery unveiling, and really excited to see what they can do. Maybe not necessarily this year. I do think they have two very good drivers. Valtteri Bottas and Checo Perez bringing a lot of experience, but probably going to be 27 or 28 before we really start to see them take those steps forward. But that is another thing that I'm very much looking forward to as we get to the Formula One season kicking off here next month.
Yeah, one thing I'm not looking forward to, though, quickly is the rotation of Spa and Barcelona.
Yeah.
Circuit de Barcelona de Catalunya. Not a good look. There's a reason Spa is one of your most famous circuits on the calendar and most beloved by fans. Not a good look to try to rotate that, but I'm sure there's some, as with NASCAR scheduling, there's a lot of politics and transfers behind the scenes that go into these sort of deals.
Yeah, we'll definitely want to see the legacy tracks stay here as much as I think, I get why they brought in. It's great for us here in the States to have 3 races, but I don't know that any country really needs 3 races if you want to call it a world championship spread. Yeah,
we really don't.
The calendar's already too long at 24, and I'm sitting here saying, how have we? When was the last German Grand Prix? It was 2019, I think. Like, how do we not have a Nürburgring or Hockenheimring on the schedule? It's just I don't know. There are certainly, and I'd love to get back to South Africa, make it a true world championship, get a race on the African continent.
They're trying, right? Yeah,
they're trying. Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know. It's certainly some changes that I would make to the calendar if I had the power to do so, but I don't here. So we'll just have to roll with it. But a couple comments here from Iceman, and then we'll wrap up the show for tonight. Thank you all for sticking with us. It really is amazing how quickly the time flies when you get deep into these discussions here, and we're still figuring out what we want to do with the show exactly this year. So stay tuned for that. But
new territory.
Yes, it is. Useless fact: Frankie was teammates with now Olympian bobsled athlete for Italy, former IndyCar driver Simona De Silvestro, who would be a great choice for a Project 91 driver. Yeah, I would love to see Simona come over, and I think that would be a great opportunity for Trackhouse to bring that car back out there again. Brandon, have you been catching any of the Winter Olympics? You been watching any of that?
Oh yeah, but I mean, not intentionally per se, but just because it's on, it's hard to miss. I love the luge, bobsled, curling. Gotta love curling. There's a little bit of controversy this year with one of those teams doing a little sketchy stuff, but I much prefer the winter. You'll find me be a Winter Olympics guy over the summer, just because of all the big jumps, the cross country skiing. I love all the stuff in the snow and the ice.
Yeah, Iceman also adding here, Haas will probably sell their team to Toyota. They have a Ferrari engine deal until 2028, same end year as Cadillac. I wonder if Toyota might surprisingly join F1 in 2029. I think that would certainly be interesting. Great to see another manufacturer come in to the sport, if that is what Toyota does to that extent here. It's great enough to see them partnering with Haas, but I just can't help but think back to the 2000s when Toyota had arguably one of the biggest budgets in Formula One and just seemed to go to waste year after year. They just never quite were able to compete for world championships in the same way that Ferrari and McLaren were of the time. Even I think BMW got up there with Sauber and Robert Kubica winning them a race and making that team a little bit more competitive than Toyota ever seemed to get. So, we certainly would hope that if they do come back as a full factory team or works team, that would go a little bit better than it did the last time for sure. Yeah, and confirming, thank you, 2019. They did race Nürburgring in 2020, albeit as the Eiffel Grand Prix. Yeah, well, that was weird because you had double headers and different race names because of all the restrictions still in place. I'm glad we got a season at all that year. But yeah, so I guess it's been since 19 that we got the German Grand Prix, but been since 20 that we raced in the country at all. So
and only COVID could bring us back to Mugello.
There you go. Yeah,
that was fun.
That was fun, for sure. All right, well, we're gonna call it here. Thank you all so much for tuning in for the show tonight. And again, we will maybe have a different background for next week and more defined format as well. Still figuring all that out. But thank you for tuning in for the pilot episode here, so to speak, as we kick off the season at Daytona. We'll see you next week for Atlanta. Brandon, before we go, do you have any final thoughts? I know you were the one who brought up good points day, right? Do you have a way too early chase for the Cup prediction here? While we're going back in time, it's 2004 again here with the chase being back. Who would be your championship pick way too early?
It is. I hear Chase for the Cup, the whole soundtrack, just pencil fight, all those great songs we remember.
There you go. Yeah.
Playing back through my head. My favorite EA Sports title that I put way too many hours in. For everyone, it's 2004. For me, it was 2005, Chase for the Cup. Okay, way too early pick for the Chase for the Cup. Going to Homestead, Miami, I think consistency is going to play right into the hands of one Denny Hamlin.
You're going with Denny Hamlin. All right.
I'm going with Denny Hamlin. Don't know how, don't know when, don't know why, but somehow, some way.
I'm sure that would be a popular story for sure.
Yeah.
Well, speaking of Chase, I will go with Chase, but not the Chase that's won a championship, not Chase Elliott. I think Chase Briscoe. I'll stick with Joe Gibbs Racing. I think this is going to be the year he breaks through, and is consistent enough through those last 10 races to win the championship. But again, that pick is subject to change, as I'm sure Brandon yours is probably as well, depending on how the first 26 races play out and what that chase grid looks like.
Well, you can't change your way too early pick because then it wouldn't be a way too early pick. It stays the same.
We'll wait. Fair enough. We'll wait and see.
That's its own category. Yeah.
Yeah. We'll get into the heart of the season and see how those picks look like in a few weeks,
sure.
if they're trending well or not. But gonna be an interesting season for sure. And like I said,
I can't wait to get into the season like this.
Yeah, I've got so much more motivation and excitement than I've had in years because I still want full 36. And like I said, if you think I'm going to shut up about that when we get to August, you don't know me well enough. I am still going to bang the drum for that format and hope we get back to it eventually. But this is a great first step in the right direction, and certainly much better than what we had. So we will leave it there. For Brandon Crossland, I'm Ben Schneider. Thank you all so much for tuning in on my channel here to the debut episode of Motorsport Monday. We will see you next week and all throughout the season, Monday nights at 8, 7 Central. Have a great rest of your week, everybody.
See ya.